Welcome back, Algebra. We're going to be solving equations again today, solving them for x, solving them for y, z, whatever, but we're going to be solving them for a variable. And the rules that we're going to use today are the same ones we've used all year. The end goal is to isolate that variable, get that variable by itself. In order to do that, we're going to have to get rid of things by doing the opposite. If it says add, we're going to subtract. If it says multiply, we're going to divide. We have to do both sides. We've been calling that cross the line, change the sign. Remember, so we're always going to do the opposite. And one of the things that you're going to have to, that's going to be key to understanding today is that the opposite of square root is square. All right, square and square root are opposites, just like add and subtract, just like multiply and divide. Square and square root are opposites. So let's get going. Let's look at this. We've got a bunch of problems here, and we're just going to go through these fairly quickly. So on the left side of that equation, I've got the square root of x. Well, how do I get rid of square root? I do the opposite. What's the opposite of square root? Square. So on the left side, the square and the square root, they just cancel, just like a plus cancels a minus and a multiply cancels a divide. Square and square root will cancel each other. And on the right side, 9 squared, that's just going to be 81. Pretty easy, right? Let's look at the next one. The square root of z is 5. How do you get rid of a square root? Well, you have to square it. So this is going to be z equals 25. Z equals 25. Okay, next one. A little bit more difficult because we've got a square root and a plus 4. First thing we have to do is get rid of that 4, right? Now, this is not new information. We've done this. This looks like a two-step equation to me. So let's subtract the 4, cross the line, change the sign. Now, all I have is the square root of a is equal to 8. How do I get rid of the square root? I need to square it, and that a is just going to be equal to 64. Let's look at another one. So what's the first step over here? Yeah, you said it. I heard you. Add the 8 over. Plus 8 plus 8. So root b is equal to 24. How do I get rid of the square root of b? I'm going to square it. I'm just going to get b equals, ooh, I need my calculator for this one. I'm not sure what 24 squared is. 576. All right, let's look at the next one. The next one, I got to get rid of that 4 again, but how do I get rid of this? This is 4 times the square root of x. So what's the opposite of times? Yeah, it's divide. So we're going to divide the 4 on both sides. So now we've got root x equals 36 divided by 4 is 9. And how do I get rid of the square root? Let's just square both sides. We just have x equals 81. Let's do the next one. Okay, so now this is almost like a two-step equation over here, where let's get rid of that 2 first, plus 2. So now I've got 5 root x equals 15. And the next thing I've got to do is divide the 5 over. So I've got root x equals 3. And the last thing, square both sides. I'm just going to get x equals 9. X equals 9. I'm going to change pen colors just so there's a little bit more contrast on here. Okay, now, new challenge down here. New challenge down here. Notice over here on this side, everything is being square rooted. Okay, so before I would have said, let's just subtract that 4, but I can't do that because the 4 is like locked up underneath that square root. So we've got to get rid of the square root first. How do we do that? And if we come back and notice that previously everything else was outside of the square root. That's why we could just get rid of it first and did the square root last. This time that 4 is under the square root, so we're going to have to square both sides first. Square and square root cancel, and I've got x plus 4 equals 9. Just one more step now. Subtract the 4. We're going to get x equals 5. Let's look at this next one. Okay, so, man, there's a lot of stuff going on over here. First thing I'm going to need to do is get rid of that 6 because it's outside of the square root. So let's just divide by 6. So now I've got the square root of 2x minus 5 is equal to 18 divided by 6 is 3. Okay, now everything on the left is under the square root sign, so now is when we're going to square it. Square and square root will cancel. We've got 2x minus 5 equals 3 squared is 9. So now let's add the 5. 2x equals 14. The last step, I'm out of room, but if you divide by 2, you're going to get x equals 7. X equals 7. All right, so that's kind of about as hard as I'm expecting you to be able to know, but I think some of you can go even deeper. So let's have a bonus round. Okay, so, whoo, man, there are a lot of numbers here. There's a lot of numbers, but let's get to it. Let's see what we can do. Now, first of all, we can't deal with that square root until we get rid of everything that's outside of it. So we're going to have to get rid of the 7 and the negative 12. I bet you know what goes first. We're going to have to add that 12 over, plus 12. So what do we have? On the left side, we've got 7 root 3x minus 4. And on the right, that's going to be 68. Okay. And now I can see that I should have changed this just a little bit. Does anybody care if I change this a little bit? Because that 7 is going to make this really, really messy. Does anybody care if we just kind of imagine that that was a 2? Let's just say that that 7 was a 2 the entire time. Is that fine? All right, good. I'm glad you agree. So we're just going to imagine that the entire time that was a 2. So now let's take that 2 and let's divide the 2 to the other side. So now I've got the square root of 3x minus 4 is equal to 34. Okay, now everything's being square rooted, so now we can square both sides. 3x minus 4 equals, I have no idea what that one is. 34 squared is 1,156. Next step, add the 4 over. 3x equals 1,160. And the last step, divide by 3. X equals, let's see what that is. 1,160 divided by 3, actually that's just going to stay just like this. That's definitely going to be a fraction. We'll just keep it as an improper fraction. 1,160 divided by 3. Okay, so the bad thing about this is it's another step in our equations that we have to solve, right? And it's kind of tricky using those square roots and squaring them, but as long as you can remember, cross the line, change the sign, do the opposite to both sides, and if you can remember to do the square root is the opposite of a square, then I think we're going to get through this just fine. All right? If you need help, watch this one more time, watch it a little bit slower, or talk to me in class. All right? I know you can do this. Good luck.